What is up, everybody? Episode 6 of Alone. Overall, this episode kind of felt like the calm before the storm. You know, we're starting to have the first traces of winter. I think it was Jesse spotted some snow across the river from where she is. And you know, soon we're going to start having that snow start falling. I don't think we're going to hit those cold temperatures, but we could have snow be a major factor, both with, you know, how they survive just with the shelters and the access to fishing and the fishing resources, because that could get very inaccessible very quickly, and we might not see a lot of our contestants get really good winter access to that river. All right, let's jump into it for tonight. We're just going to go through all the contestants in the order that they appeared. Adam and Carrie Lee were not on this episode, so we ain't talking about them. So first up, we have Terry. I think he was probably highlighted right around the most this episode. You know, he had the beaver kill. It's got to be about a week ago now, and we opened with that disgusting beaver skull scene. All I gotta say about it, it was gross. You know, the skull looked gross. Him ripping at it with his teeth looked gross. Pulling the brains out and the eyes out was disgusting. So that was a great way to start the week for Terry. Honestly, I was quite surprised that he still has so much raw meat from that beaver. We did see him go about smoking a good chunk of the meat this episode, but still he was picking off the bones, boiling that skull. Not sure what else he boiled. He made some beaver bacon there at one point, but really surprised how much raw meat that he's still dealing with, considering it's about a week later. Now, most of our temperatures over that past week have been roughly refrigerator temperatures, you know, just above freezing, but overall still pretty cold. One thing I did want to point out was I think that Terry's smoker, which I think he just threw together in a morning or like a couple hours kind of deal, it looked better than Igor's entire shelter. And this is just something that Terry just threw together just because. I loved how pumped Terry was about all of that smoked meat that he got. Seemed like that was the happiest we've seen him all season long. And then from there, we just kind of ended with Terry really reflecting on his time, you know, taking a moment to share with us how much he loves and cares for his mom, and golly, Ned. Next up, let's jump over to Tom. You know, considering what happened with him, you'd think that we'd have more to talk about for Tom this episode, but really, he was hunting a beaver. He took a shot at a beaver, thought he hit a beaver, couldn't retrieve any beaver or see any signs that he had actually hit the beaver. So whether he hit the beaver or not, we don't really know, but maybe we'll find out some point in the future. Also, Tom, that was not a beaver dam. That's the old beaver lodge that you were looking at. Next up, we have Dr. Tan. That's Timogen. He has mice in his shelter. You know, we saw him try to put a little, what do they call it, deadfall trap in it for the mice. We didn't really see anything else from that. I thought that was going to be the storyline for him this episode, but no, that was probably about the least exciting thing that happened to Dr. Tan this episode. Climbing the tree to get that arrow back seemed a little risky to me, and I kind of feel like, couldn't you just cut the tree down? Like, you're gonna use that wood anyways, right? It was reasonably close to your shelter. I don't believe it was part of his shelter. I think it was far enough away that he could have safely knock that tree down without it falling on his shelter. But maybe there was a piece of information there that we just didn't have. But anyways, he climbed the tree. He got the arrow back. They tried to give us the old jump scare commercial cut that he was falling out of the tree, but I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen. After that, he went on a grouse hunt. Well, I don't even know if he was going grouse hunting, but we see him, he shoots a grouse and then another, walks home with 3 grouse, which he says is 3 weeks worth of food for him. So that is really awesome for Dr. Tan. And he, I'd say, definitely got the most meat out of everyone this week. You know, those 3 grouse probably are not as much as a beaver, but that is a very solid haul for a week on alone. Oh yeah, also we saw him make a secondary shelter to smoke his meat in. Doesn't want to attract any bears to his main camp, and decided, hey, why not just make kind of not quite as nice secondary shelter down by the beach to smoke the meat in. And you know, I think he just had a little more access to, I don't know, just get away if something were to happen with a bear. I know that he said it was so that it was a better place to kill a bear, but I just think it would be, he'd have a better chance of dealing with it if a bear showed up. Next up, we have Jessie. We have not talked much about Jessie. We critiqued her shelter a little bit, and we're probably going to do a little bit of that again, because her whole story this season has been the hodgepodge lodge. You know, it really wasn't looking much like a shelter and more just like sticks everywhere, till she finally started filling in the walls with logs, and I'm not sure what else. I'm sure there was some moss. Hodgepodge Modge Lodge. There we go. That's for in the next season, somebody can do that shelter. I really liked her fire pit. I thought it was kind of interesting the way that she had the little vent to make sure that she gets airflow to the fire, made an actual pit, put some rocks behind it to hopefully retain some of that heat. We did see on that initial fire, though, that there were sparks flying everywhere from that fire, which may or may not turn into something further down the line. Also, once we saw the roof put together, it really did not seem to have much slope, and that is something I brought up before. And I think depending on how much snow we do end up seeing this season could be an issue for Jessie. But I haven't looked up any of the weather stuff for Labrador to see just how much snow and cold they're going to get. But we'll be interested to see how the Hodgepodge Lodge holds up. Lastly, we have Juan Pablo. You know, the episode was called The Weasel, so you knew as soon as you saw him and the weasel there was going to be something there. You know, he first spots that weasel after the fishing trip and ends the episode with him shooting the weasel and feeling a little remorse afterwards, not too happy with himself for having taken out the weasel. But in between there, you know, we saw him shoot a grouse, and then the grouse got away. But several days later, he finds the partially eaten grouse and decides to take it back to camp. And of course, that was when he shot the weasel, right after the weasel tried to steal that grouse from Juan Pablo. So yeah, interesting episode for Juan Pablo. You know, we saw him have that moment of loneliness, of missing his partner, and really, you know, it made it build up like he was potentially going to tap out there at the end of the episode. But instead, we see Juan Pablo really just strengthen his resolve to make it to the end and potentially win the season of Alone. I will say he probably is equipped to at least end up in that top 4, top 3 this season, and wouldn't be surprised if he is there right to the bitter end. All right, everybody, that wraps things up for this week. As always, please leave your comments on your thoughts on the episode. I know some of you quite enjoy leaving comments, whether they're about the episode or not, but I always appreciate all the comments that we get each and every week. So everybody, thank you very much. And I guess we'll just see you next time, because I kind of butchered my catchphrase there.